Hi guys, I'm back. I'm continuing my list of my top 50 rappers or MCs of all time. And now that I'm at the top 10, I'm on number 10 right now. Now that I'm at number 10, I'm going to do one video each for each of the top 10. Number 10 on my list is Ras Kass, Razzy Kazzy, the Golden Child, out of Carson, California. I believe he spent part of his childhood in Watts, California, also in Carson, California. These are blue-collar or working-class or poorer communities in Southern California, I guess outside of Los Angeles. So Ras Kass is originally from Carson, California, USA. Carson, California, USA. Ras Kass is a member of the hip-hop groups, first of all, the Horsemen, along with Cannabis, Killah Priest, and Corrupt. He is a member of the hip-hop duo Hendrix, along with the very talented producer Jack Splash. And most recently, Ras Kass joined a group called the Jamo Gang, spelled capital J, lowercase A-M-O, the Jamo Gang. I'll link you to the Jamo Gang's Bandcamp. Buy their EP if you can. And the Jamo Gang consists of Ras Kass, J57 of the Brown Bag All-Stars. He's J57 of the Brown Bag All-Stars, is a producer and DJ for the Jamo Gang, and the other MC in the Jamo Gang is L Gaunt. I'll link you to the Jamo Gang's Bandcamp. Please buy their EP. Support real hip hop, please. Now, Ras Kass, very, very slept on, underrated, underappreciated MC. The greatest hip-hop lyricist ever from the West Coast. He's at number 10 on my list, and this video is just about Ras Kass. I cannot hammer home how much Ras Kass is underrated and underappreciated. The greatest West Coast MC of all time. Better than Crooked I. Better than Yuck Mouth. Better than the late great Tupac Shakur. Better than Bishop Lamont. Better than Planet Asia. Better than all the guys in Strong Arm Steady. Better than Ice-T. Better than Spice One. Better than Richie Rich. Better than RBX. Better than Corrupt. Better than Daz Dillinger. Better than J.O. Felony. Better than, I think I mentioned Spice One, Richie Rich. The Jacker. God bless, and may he rest in heaven's paradise. Jay Stalin, better than him, better than E40. I don't have to name all the West Coast legendary MCs out there. He's obviously better than Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, J-Rock, and Absol. But anyways, Ras Kass is the best MC to ever come out of Western North America. The western half, almost, of the Western Hemisphere of any English-speaking rapper. Ras Kass, the Golden Child, Van Gogh, the Waterproof MC. Okay, Ras Kass, born in, I believe, September 1973 in the greater Los Angeles area. what can I say about him? He started a buzz when he was in high school. When Ras Kass was in high school, Razzy had written a poem, a Afrocentric, pro-black poem called "The Nature of the Threat." I think when he was in grade 11. So this would have been in 1989. He wrote this as kind of an essay for his civics class or social studies class. And with that Afrocentric, intellectual, super lyrical type of hypercharged type of tone, he started rapping around this time, 1989. He didn't record any of his earlier material. Got attention from Sway Calloway and King Tech in about 1992 and 1993. They invited him up to the Bay Area, and he performed some freestyles in 93 and 94 for Sway and King Tech on the Wake Up Show. And from there, he was featured on. I don't know if you guys remember in 1994 there was that corny movie Street Fighter. He did a track on there. It was an excellent track called "Come With It." It was Ras Kass, Ahmad, who was a Christian rapper, member of the group Fourth Avenue Jones, and Saafir, who was a former member of Digital Underground. So they did a track called "Come With It." It's a legendary track. It's almost 25 years old, from the Street Fighter movie soundtrack. From there, Ras Kass started working on his first studio album, that being Soul on Ice, which was delayed a little bit. I think it was supposed to come out in 1995, in the fall of 1995. Soul on Ice actually came out in the fall of 1996. The album was way, 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 way ahead of its time. Had some class. It didn't have the greatest production on it. And Ras Kass was signed to a major label, Priority, which he would later end up regretting, obviously, if you know anything about Ras Kass. But he got his major label debut. The album was delayed for a year. It was released in the fall of 1996. I don't know which exact month, if it was September, October, November of 1996. And it was a classic album. It didn't have great production, but the lyrics, oh my. The lyrics. On the first song, "On Earth as It Is in Heaven," man, he kills it. That's a legendary track, underground hip-hop track, "On Earth as It Is in Heaven." And then, of course, you got other tracks on there. "The Evil That Men Do," "Sunset," where he debates, where he talks about that East Coast. It was delayed by a year, so he wrote it in 94, 95, the track "Sunset." But he was trying to say that West Coast and East Coast lyricists or rappers should not beef and should come together during the Notorious B.I.G., obviously the Bad Boy Death Row beef, the Notorious B.I.G. Tupac Shakur beef, and they should come together and unite and help the art form evolve lyrically. And I agree. I think he had very admirable sentiment when he did that. And of course, the most famous track on Soul on Ice from the fall of 1996 would be "The Nature of the Threat." In the song "The Nature of the Threat," I mentioned that he wrote it as an essay when he was in high school in 1989. He talks, some would call it alternative history, many would call it alternative history or fake history or made-up history. Revisionist history would be another term. revisionist history, something out of the category of the Nation of Islam, or the Nation of Gods and Earths, or Dr. Malachi Z. York's Nuwabian movement. So, the nature of the threat, like I mentioned, it can be considered alternative history, fictional history, revisionist history. I'm not willing to call it any of that. It's the man's opinion. I respect Ras Kass unconditionally as one of the greatest top 10 hip-hop lyricists of all time. And he drops a lot of truth in that song. He talks about the history of racism, especially how racism and other forms of bigotry affected black people or non-white people. And it caused some minor buzz at the time in '96, but it never pushed Ras Kass to the mainstream. So, great album, classic Soul on Ice from 1996. Now, after that, 2 years later, in the fall of 1998, he released a pretty decent album, Rassassination. There's a few songs I really enjoy in that album. One is an obvious one, just like Nature of the Threat was on his first album, Soul on Ice, from '96, the fall of '96. So, if we look, fall of 1998's Rassassination. What can I say? Smoother production. He had some big guest appearances on there. The most notable would be Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre. Right as Dr. Dre was being notified about Eminem. This is right in that time frame. Maybe a little bit before he got his Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine got the Slim Shady EP. So this is late '97 when the song was made. Ghetto Fabulous, Ras Kass featuring Dr. Dre and Mac 10. Also in the music video, there's Ice-T on top of that. But that was Ras Kass's attempt at going mainstream. He had a song with Mac 10 and obviously Dr. Dre in it, where Dr. Dre spits a verse, probably written by Ras Kass, maybe written by Ice-T, maybe written by Mac 10. One thing I do know for sure, that Dr. Dre did not write his verse for Ghetto Fabulous, nor has he really written any of his verses in his whole career, but it was a decent enough verse. But the song sucked. Ghetto Fabulous sucked. But on that album, there's a song featuring Jazz Fa. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a good / producer. Jazz Fa just slicks. He does real slick stuff. He's worked with Southern hip hop artists. This is very early in Jazzy Fas, or whatever. The name is spelled capital J, lowercase a, ZZE, space, capital P, lowercase HA. I'll link you to his Wikipedia page. Or his Discogs page or something below this video. Jazz Fa. He had a song featuring him called It Is What It Is, and there, the song was called It Is What It Is on the album Rassassination featuring Jazzy Fa. And it's a perfect blend of smoothness yet with on-point lyrics, and that was a great track from that album. And the other track, obviously, that album's version of Nature of the Threat was Interview with a Vampire featuring God and Satan. And in the track, it's a very deep philosophical track where Ras Kass voices himself as a human being, and then he voices God, and Satan. And they talk about many philosophical subjects in there, the origins of life, the origins of the universe, the meaning of life, good versus evil, all sorts of things, alien life. That's an excellent track, Interview with the Vampire, from Assassination. Very slept on, just like Nature of the Threat. Neither of those two albums, Soul on Ice or Assassination, sold well at all. Ras Kass was still locked up, probably from 1994 to, I don't know if he was signed. I don't know. So in the comments, if you know, I heard somewhere that he was signed from 1994 to 2004 with Priority, a 10-year deal, because he was so hyped up on Sway and King Tech's radio show. I don't know how many albums he had to put out during that time, but I know that he was signed to Priority and whatever big conglomerate that owns it. And the period of time was from 1994 to 2004. But Ras Kass continued on after. He got in some legal trouble for drunk driving and other issues, probably marijuana possession. He tried to put out 2 albums, Van Gogh and Golden Child. You can get crappy leaked versions online of these albums, or remix versions. They're supposed to be officially put out by Priority Records in just in the fashion that Soul on Ice and Assassination was, but they never got the mainstream release and CD pressing in all the music stores. And Ras Kass was incarcerated at this time. I think he was incarcerated a few times. One time he was incarcerated, it was more of a lengthy time, and he went to jail. I think it's called Corcoran Prison in California, and I don't know how long he was there. Maybe 8 months. I think that was for his drunk driving charge, and he wrote some great rhymes there that he would use much later on in his career. So he had legal troubles from about 2000 to 2004. He was incarcerated a couple times, including a stint for about 8 months, or if you know more information, put it in the comment section. 8 months, and in Corcoran Prison in Southern California. But he got out. He worked on doing features. He did a feature with Jedi Mind Tricks, with Jedi Mind Tricks. He dropped some compilation and unreleased material albums. He dropped a few mixtapes. This is from 2004 to 2012. He dropped an album. He dropped more of street albums. He dropped like one album was called, as an acronym, Adidas. The other one was called Barmageddon. They weren't great albums, as great as his first 2 albums. He worked on mixtapes, those street releases, underground releases between 2004 and 2004 and 2013. But in 2014, he hooked up with Apollo Brown of Mellow Music Group, and he released an undisputed hip-hop classic called Blasphemy. I own the album. I'm going to link you to the Bandcamp page for the album, Apollo Brown and Ras Kass, Blasphemy. That is Ras Kass's best album ever. Better than Soul on Ice, actually. On the album Blasphemy, Ras Kass, start to finish, the whole thing is brilliant. One of my favorite hip-hop albums of all time is Apollo Brown and Ras Kass, Blasphemy. Excellent production from Apollo Brown. Great lyrics from Ras Kass, start to finish. I mean, great features on there. He has Sean Price, kills it. He has Slain, God bless and rest in paradise to Sean Price. Slain, Sick Jackin' of the Psycho Realm. It's Royce the 5'9". He has Xzibit on that album. He has Raka of Dilated Peoples on that album. He had a Pharoah Monch feature where Pharoah Monch killed it. The whole album of Blasphemy was just excellent. One of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. It was released in, I believe, November 2014. I'll put the Bandcamp link. You can check it. And great production, great lyrics. Excellent album. The thesis behind his theme or motif behind Blasphemy was looking at basically religion and spirituality, and the conclusion that Ras Kass came that he is a spiritual individual, but he doesn't subscribe to any one organized religion or faith. But it's an excellent, excellent album. Check it out. Buy it in digital or physical format. I own it. I own several versions of it in digital. I own the version with the regular tracks, instrumentals, and acapellas. Bonus track. So Blasphemy by Apollo Brown, the producer, and Ras Kass, the lyricist. One of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. About a year after that, he put out a very good album with I would consider Jack Splash an electronic music producer, more so than a hip-hop producer, but they put out an album called Breakfast at Banksy's. It was a pretty good album there. He talked about some of the same subject matter as on Blasphemy. There's some commentary on religion and politics as well. From there, he put out an album, the sequel to Soul and Ice, Soul and Ice 2, Intellectual Property. That came out in September of 2016. That was an excellent album. Production, hit or miss, but there's certain tracks on that album. I'll mention this album more because it's more recent. It came out in September of 2016. He had a track called PayPal the Feature with the late great Sean Price. God bless Sean Price. And I believe Smith & Wesson from Sean Price's record label Duck Down. That song, PayPal the Feature, featuring Sean Price and Smith & Wesson's great track from Ras Kass's Soul on Ice 2, Intellectual Property. Ras Kass also had another song called Talk Greasy, featuring a great lyricist you should check out. He's about 20 years old. All Flows Reach Out, or Afro. He's a R.A. the Rugged Man protege. Afro killed his verse on that. He had a song called What Would Jesus Do? That's a good song from that album. Soul on Ice 2, Intellectual Property. He has a track on there. My favorite track is called Hood on Ice. Excellent lyrical track by Ras Kass. Shows Ras Kass at his best. And I highly recommend that album too. Ras Kass's album, Soul on Ice 2, Intellectual Property. After that, much more recently, he put out a mixtape of, I think it was called Year End Closeout. I own that as well in digital format. It's various singles and features he did in the last 2015 to 2017. Of course, I mentioned earlier the Jamo Gang. Earlier this year, in January, he put out the album with his new group, the Jamo Gang, which is Ras Kass, El Gaunt, and J57 of the Brown Bag All-Stars. So I'll put below this video information about El Gaunt, J57, Jazzy Fa, and some of the other artists I've mentioned. Apollo Brown. I'll put the Bandcamp links for the Jamo Gang album, for Ras Kass's Bandcamp page, and for the Bandcamp link for Blasphemy from the Mellow Music Group Bandcamp. But on Ras Kass, really, you know, when Ras Kass is on, he's on. He's so well-rounded lyrically. You know, he has humorous lyrics. He has gangsta lyrics, if you want to call it, street lyrics, very deep philosophical, political, and spiritual lyrics. He's great multisyllabic ability, extremely imaginative. He's the greatest MC in the English language, in my opinion, west of the northeastern United States. Actually, no, I screwed up. No, he's not. He's second best. You'll find out who the best is. So he's the second best lyricist, hip-hop lyricist, west of the northeastern United States. There's one from a western state that's better, who I will not mention, but he's going to be higher up on this list. But out of the West Coast, as it pertains to California, Ras Kass is the greatest MC lyrically of all time. He has two undisputed classic underground hits, The Nature of the Threat and Interview with the Vampire. He has many more songs. I mentioned some of them, but just got to check the guy out. I'll link you also to his iTunes. So you buy his albums in digital and physical format. Ras Kass. He's a rapper. I like to mention Eminem a lot. He's a example of a rapper, Ras Kass, who's better than Eminem in every department, maybe except for maybe fast rapping. Eminem can rap faster, that kind of a Midwest chopper style, but in lyrical content in every way, Ras Kass is better than Eminem. Ras Kass sadly doesn't get the credit he deserves. And as we all know, I'm not even hating on Eminem here. Eminem gets a lot of credit, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe, I don't know how much, $200 million Canadian, in Canadian dollars, maybe $175 million American. But it kind of pisses me off to see Kendrick Lamar get all this attention, being called one of the greatest West Coast lyricists of all time. Kendrick Lamar isn't even one thousandth of the MC Ras Kass is. Kendrick Lamar has never impressed me lyrically. He's a big sellout, and he's no Ras Kass. I know the thing that kind of bugs me about Ras Kass, as I was alluding to earlier, is he has this yearning to try to get mainstream recognition and fame. Sometimes he'll name drop in his songs Eminem or Dr. Dre. He did that song 20 years ago with Dr. Dre, Ghetto Fabulous. It didn't work. It didn't work to propel him into the mainstream, even though he had a Dr. Dre in the video, and Dr. Dre, he had a verse. Dr. Dre had a verse in that song, and it was written by somebody else, but Dr. Dre working with Dr. Dre did not propel Ras Kass into hip-hop superstardom or even temporary stardom. And Ras Kass in the last 2 years has done interviews with DJ Vlad, and he brings up Eminem and Dr. Dre, and he said even on the album Blasphemy, on the song Animal Sacrifice, something like I was Kendrick before Kendrick. But I know he's trying to appeal to the mainstream here, but he's far greater of a lyricist than Kendrick Lamar. He's not a mainstream shill like Kendrick Lamar is. I know Ras Kass wants to be seen as relevant, and he has a big ego, and he deserves to have a big ego because he's a great lyricist, number 10 in my opinion of all time. But that's one thing that disappoints me, that he sometimes tries to ride mainstream artists' dicks indirectly by mentioning them in interviews or in his songs. I mentioned Eminem, Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar. I couldn't care less about Eminem, Dr. Dre, or Kendrick Lamar. Their music's... I'll take Eminem out of it. The music of Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar is terrible, especially their newer stuff. In the case of Dr. Dre, anything that he's put out since 2005. In the case of Kendrick Lamar, anything that he's put out since 2012 or 2013. So I just don't give a fuck about Kendrick Lamar or Dr. Dre. They're overrated, overappreciated, overpaid, underskilled. Dr. Dre, underskilled as a producer. He uses ghost producers to produce for him. He's more of a executive producer, business guy. Kendrick Lamar probably has a lot of his lyrics ghost written, totally overrated. Spits garbage. His latest album that won the Pulitzer, Humble, that was a terrible trap music, trap, pop, rap album. Horrible. There's only one good song in the whole album. So, Ras Kass is the real deal here. Everyone knows who's a hip-hop head, that is. Who's a hip-hop head. That's the big caveat there. Anyone who's a hip-hop head or understands the history of hip-hop knows it's not doing well right now in the mainstream. The mainstream version of hip-hop is probably the worst it's ever been. It's a fucking joke. So you have to look at old school hip-hop, including obviously mainstream old school hip-hop from before the year 2000, and you have to look even in more detail at underground, alternative, and independent hip-hop to find the real shit out there. Ras Kass is pretty much as real as you can get, as lyrical as you can possibly be, and super underrated. Check out Ras Kass. Buy his stuff in digital or physical format. He deserves more money. Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar deserve way less money. Support Ras Kass. Support real hip hop, not the bullshit that Kendrick Lamar puts out. Ras Kass will be turning 45 next month. Support the guy. He needs the support. Kendrick Lamar needs the opposite of support. He needs to go away because he's overrated and whack, in my opinion. So the real West Coast hero is Ras Kass. He was never a gangster rapper from the West Coast. He was never ultra misogynistic or into ultra violence in his lyrics. Never tried to be, although he does incorporate some gangster rap themes in his lyrics. He is himself, and that is the greatest lyricist to ever come out of the state of California. Buy Ras Kass's stuff. I can't state this enough. Buy his albums in physical or digital format. Buy merchandise wherever you can find it. I'll link you to some of it. Support Ras Kass, one of the greatest hip-hop lyricists in the English language. In the English language. In my list, number 10 of all time. And you're getting pretty high when you get to the top 10. So, Ras Kass, in my opinion, 10th greatest lyricist in the English language of the music genre of hip-hop of all time. Thanks, guys.